tell you what's not tremendous from Keir Starmer is, you remember this prisoner release? We all know what we're talking about by now, free up prison space and so on and so forth. Well, it turns out, everybody, that now 37 prisoners in this cohort were released accidentally because of an error. Basically, the way that their crimes had been categorised meant that they shouldn't have been released, but they accidentally were. It's all to do with things like breaking restraining orders. Now, most of these have gone back into prison, but at least 5 of them that we're aware of have gone AWOL. What do you think to this, Aaron Bastani?
Well, unless one of them does something awful, which is obviously perfectly possible, I mean, it's not a huge PR disaster, because, as you said, most of them
Have you ever had anyone subject to a restraining order?
Not yet.
For harassing you?
Not yet. It's come close.
It is one of the most...
Rather attractive woman. Yeah.
When you've got somebody that's harassing you, threatening you, and you've got a restraining order out on them, that restraining order gives you a small sense of comfort. When they're behind bars for breaching that, it gives you a renewed sense of comfort that actually the justice system is working. To know that that individual that has put you through hell is now out and about when they should not be, there will be victims that will be absolutely terrified because of this. And I actually think that this is appalling. I think it's so appalling when you start talking about halving abuse towards women and girls, and then we find out that actually people on restraining orders are out and about and we don't know where they are. But, hey, it's all right, everyone, because someone that tweeted something absurd on Twitter is behind bars, so, hey, high five us. I'm really concerned about this.
But it's not all of them, but you're quite right. I mean, and also I suppose there's a question that are the people that are the victims in that equation, obviously primarily women, I would presume, are they aware of... Apparently these victims have now been made aware. But it doesn't make it any less terrible. No, that is awful. That is
knowing that the person that has made your life hell, because it's not easy to get a restraining order, by the way, I wish it was somewhat easier in some cases, but knowing that that person is out because of an error, it's appalling.
Well, our criminal justice system is in ruins, and it's full of incompetence and sloppiness, and it's full of holes. And this is what you have. And you, again, referring to Keir Starmer's speech, nothing that this government proposes is going to make any difference to that. If people don't like it, and they shouldn't like it, and I completely appreciate what you say about restraining orders, then they really do need to start considering, seriously examining the people who stand for government in front of them and not listening anymore to promises of bobbies on the beat and more law and order, because they're not going to deliver them until our politics is revolutionised. And I've been saying this now for 20 years. I wrote a book about it. It is called The Abolition of Liberty. It goes into detail about what needs to be done, and I keep on saying it. I cannot get anybody to pay any attention to it, but I promise you these things are soluble, but they're only soluble if we break with these politics of treating crime not as an act of evil, but as a social disease caused by bad housing and abuse and things like that, which needs fundamentally to be tackled by social workers. Crime is done by people because they think they can get away with being wicked, because the police are weak and the courts are weak and the prisons are weak, and you don't encounter punishment in our system until you've already become a habitual criminal. Fix those things would take about 5 years, starting with, as I say, replacing the existing police with a proper one, and you can do it. But you will never, ever hear any politician in the major parties even speaking as if they understand these problems. They don't know, they don't want to know. If you want to change it, change our politics. Otherwise, it will go on as it was before, and people will just have to get stronger front doors and better locks.
Gosh, honestly, I think sometimes society and what goes on in society, I do think it's actually quite depressing in lots of instances.
It's not depressing would be irrational. To be depressed is to be unhappy without any reason. It's actually disgraceful and infuriating. But what's most infuriating about it is any attempt to initiate a public debate about it dies at birth, because nobody is seriously interested in our thinking classes, in our governing classes, in our media classes. They swallow slogans and rubbish over and over again, and they never do anything about it. And it's taken years to get to the point where people are beginning to accept a point I made 20 years ago, that our police are simply not doing the job for which we pay them and need to be replaced.
And You'll have views on that at home, I'm absolutely sure. Winter fuel allowance, you've seen the unions today. They wanted a vote at conference on Monday. The vote was pushed back to today. They're not happy about that because loads of people have basically gone home. There's been tough talk from a couple of the unions basically saying that Keir Starmer must reverse this decision on winter fuel allowance. Do you think he will?
No, because, of course, that's the admission of making a mistake, which, by the way, Keir Starmer has never done, ever, in his political career. I think a really instructive thing with regards to this is his newfound YIMBYism. Yes, in my backyard. We need to build, build, build. If you look at his voting record in 2015, Keir Starmer opposed HS2. Why? Because it meant knocking down Euston. Why does he care about that? Well, because it's in his constituency. He was a NIMBY, not in my backyard. And so...
People can change?
That's true. People
can move constituency, yeah.
Although, at that point, it's important to say, he was in his early 50s. It's not like he was some young political whippersnapper. But you're right, people can change. But he's gone from arch, Remainer, free movement, to saying to your colleague earlier today that we need to have low immigration. And he's gone from being a NIMBY to the arch YIMBY. And I think, given all that, you look at the winter fuel allowance, I suspect it's going to be very hard for him to change course on this. I have to say, even if you think it's sensible in so much as we need to reduce spending here or there, I don't actually think that, but park that for a moment. If you think we need to reduce government spending, it's incredibly ambitious to say, here's a benefit for 12 million pensioners, we're going to cut it to 2 million. Not 8 million, 6 million, 4 million. They've basically eliminated it. And one thing that really interests me, and I hadn't heard it until a conference this week, I was up in Liverpool, was a point put to me by somebody who's really got their finger on the pulse. They said that the winter fuel allowance was a brainchild of Gordon Brown, of course, when he was Chancellor. And the Blairites, who very much form Starmer's retinue, wanted to destroy one of the legacies of Brown. It was very much a political impulse. So it might not necessarily be electoral thinking here. It's not really going to make that much of a difference to the deficit or to the sort of the fiscal probity that Starmer keeps on talking about. I do feel perhaps there's a little bit of a political grudge playing out between the Blairites and the Brownites.
Also, I should point out, Starmer won't be sorry to have been attacked by the trade unions at the part of the conference he couldn't even be bothered to attend. He almost certainly believes, do him good with the Middle England voters he still needs to woo. So he won't be troubled about that. It's like, just as Labour Education Secretary has always loved being shouted down and heckled by teachers' union conferences, because it makes it look as if they're tough on education, when in fact they're not. This is triangulation. It's an old trick. I don't think he'll be at all bothered by that vote.
What do you make to it at home? There's very strong opinions. I know what you make to it at home, this winter fuel thing. You tell me you think it's appalling. That's one of the first priorities of this government has been to tackle this payment to pensioners when you've got all the other seemingly endless spending priorities going on all over the place. I know you're very angry about that. One of my viewers has said, look, your earlier view was right. Mike from Salford says, enough with the sausages. What we need to talk about is serious subjects like mass migration. I can see where
we have, but we've also talked about sausages.
Mass migration. This, honestly, I know you all want everyone to move on from this, but it's going to rumble on for a long time. But